In this video, we'll be looking at control flow statements. So what are the different control flow statements, how you can write them, how you can use them in your use cases while you are developing or working on the TypeScript based applications, right? So first we have if-else. We'll see how you can execute if-else statements and when to use it, how to use it in TypeScript. Then we have switch case. How can you use switch case and what would be the good use case when you have to choose if-else and when you have to use switch case, right? And then we'll see the for loop, how you can write a for loop. It's no different from other programming language, but still we can have a look at it. And then we have while loop, the same thing. And then we have do while loop, right? So after do while loop, we'll close this video by understanding the importance of break statement and continue statements, right? So let's get started with that. Let me open my code editor and first of all move all of these to a folder, basic types, and yeah, move. Cool. Now let me create a new file, control flow statements.ts, right? So first thing, so let me create a function. Okay, get the index or get all even elements, or get sum of even elements in a array, right? So get sum of even elements in an array, something of this sort, right? First thing is if-else statement. So the if-else statement is basically break down into if and else part, or else you can add another case where like if, else if, and else. So basically, if the condition is true, then execute that block of code. What is a block of code in any programming language or TypeScript? Anything that is wrapped inside a flower bracket. So block of code as in this flower bracket. So if a function has two blocks, something of this sort, then these two are called as different blocks, right? So anything of this sort where we cover or wrap it inside flower brackets, we call it as block scope, right? Now I'll modify this function, or I'll create a new function which says function execute if else, right? So if this is one block, else this is one block. Okay, so whenever inside the if block, whatever condition you give, so this condition should be evaluated to a Boolean value. So this condition should evaluate to a Boolean value. Condition will be evaluated. It means that the value of that variable or anything inside that parenthesis is going to be evaluated as a Boolean. And whenever the condition of the value of condition is true, when condition is true, then if block is executed. When condition is false, then else block is executed, right? So when condition is true, the if block is executed. When condition is false, the else block is executed. So if you see here, I have directly given the value true inside the if block, then it means that this block will be always executed. So console.log if block is executed. When the value inside the parenthesis is true. Similarly, when the value else block is executed, when value inside the parenthesis is false. Now if you see, this part of the code is already in grayed out, right? So it is saying that unreachable code, because this function, inside this function, we always know, or the compiler always know only that this block will be executed because we have hard coded the value true. It means this block will never be executed. Right now, instead of that, we will write a condition, and this condition is going to be received as an argument, right? So condition, this is of type boolean, right? Now let me pass the value based on that. Let's see. So instead of writing this, I'll say console.log hello code sapiens. So when the condition is true, we are going to get a hello message, and when the condition is false, we are going to get a bye bye message. Bye bye code sapiens, right? So now when you execute if else, if you pass true, then this block of code will be executed because the value of condition is true, and when you pass the value as false, then this block of code will be executed. So ts node control flow statement. So see, in the first case hello block is executed, and the second case bye bye code sapiens block is executed. So that's how you control it. And if I simply say I will check, so I am writing a function, so the use case of it, I am writing a function check if odd or even, right? So I am checking if a particular number is odd or even, right? So if the number data or the value of type number, if value %2, which gives me the reminder. So when the value is divided by 2 and the remainder is equal to 0. So see, triple equal to means that if the value %2 evaluates to 0, then 0 equal to 0, right? Then it means the value of inside here, I can show you console.log. So if I just console.log this, right? If I just console.log this, then I'll know console.log value is even number. Otherwise, value is odd number, in this fashion, right? So now check if odd or even. So if I send 1, similarly I can send multiple values. So 1, 6, 9, 99, 100 and 102. So I should get odd, even, odd, odd, even, even, right? So when I execute my code, see, first case, the value 1 divided by 2, 1 remainder of 2, 1 when divides by 2, the remainder is 1, because 1 by 2, it's the remainder 1, and 1, hence 1 is an odd number, it went into else block. It means 0 is not equal to 0. Similarly, a value %2, now 6 divided by 2, the remainder is 0, hence 6 is an even number. That's how you will use your if else block, if else piece of code. It means that whenever you want to execute one piece of code when the condition is true and one piece of code when the condition is false. In the same way, sometimes you might have a different use case, like there might be lot of conditions. Here we have only two values, either true or false, but sometimes you want to do on a multiple conditions, like if the number is multiple of 2, do something. If the number is multiple of 3, then do something. Number is multiple of 4, then do something, right? In that case we have if, else if and else block. We'll see how we can write or use if, else if and else, right? Now let's see a place where we have to use if, else if and else if blocks, and let me modify this particular code or this particular function a bit. So we'll write down another function check if number is divisible by given numbers. By number is divisible, so we'll basically see if the number is divisible by 2, 3 and 2, 3, 1, yeah, 2, 3 are fine basically, right? 2, 3, 4, you can use 5, so we'll use 2, 3, 5. Okay, divisible by 2, 2, 3, 5. So in this case what I'll do is I'll take the value, right? So if value %2 is equal to 0, then console.log you have value is divisible by 2, right? Similarly, now else if, so here you can write another if condition. It's almost like another if condition, but the problem is, the thing is here is that first it will check for this condition, either this is true or not, then it will check for this condition, if this is true or not, then it will check for this condition, value %5, right? And if nothing matches, then it goes into the else block. So if any of the previous blocks didn't match, then it goes for the last if block. So let me copy this statement and replicate it. Right, and value is not divisible by 2, 3, 5, right? Here it is 3 and here it is 5. There is one small mistake in this code. I'll leave it for you right now to find what it is. Check if number is divisible by, so let me take this, call this function a couple of times. First I'll check with 1, then I'll check with 2, then I'll check with 3, then I'll check with 6, then I'll check with 5, right? Then I'll check with 10, 9, then I'll check with 10. Okay, so I'm calling this function with different arguments. Let me pull this up, right? 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 9, 10. Okay, so if you see right now and call this function ts node, see 1 is not divisible by 2, 3, 5, because when you passed the 1, neither of these blocks aren't executed, because the value 1 divided by 2 is not equal to 0, 1 divided by 3 is not equal to 0, 1 divided by 5 is not equal to 0. So it entered into the last block. 2 is divisible by 2, 3 is divisible by 3, 5 is divisible by 5, but 6, see here, 6 is divisible by 2, that is totally fine, but it stopped executing. It didn't check for the next block. though 6 is divisible by 3 as well, we just stopped here and the control of this function has been ended, because once the if block is reached, any of the condition in if else if is executed, then that is stopped. Similarly 9, but when you go for 10 again, though it is divisible by 5, the condition has been stopped at 2. So the if else if block says that if any of the condition matches, the entire block, so entire conditions in any of those, if even one matches, the remaining all are skipped. So to avoid this, or to write a better use case where you can keep continuing your flow, we have other options with us, that are switch case, which we are going to discuss. Otherwise the if else and else if block are pretty much it. So when you want to execute a condition, you can use this, or somebody or some people will argue that why can't I simply use if and yeah. So when you write else, this will be bound only to this particular block, so latest if statement. So you can write this, you can write that, but just to ensure, so if I write down it this way, now what will happen is that, see, now 1 is not divisible by 2, 2 is not divisible by 2, but the remaining all things, 2 is not divisible by 2, 3, 5, 3 is divisible by 3, again 3 is not divisible by, because the last if else block is tied together. So what happens is, first, when in the case of 2, first it reached here, console.log is divisible by this, then fine, it printed, then it checked for this condition. Whereas in the previous statement or previous code, we haven't checked, because if else if are all clubbed together, but right now they are segregated, each if has its own path, right? So if checked here, true, executed, checked here, false, didn't execute, checked here, then false, didn't execute. But for this if, there is a else block associated with it, that's why the other elements like 1, 2, 3, all of these have been executed. So how it is not always mandatory to club your else with the if, sometimes you can go with this, but here the problem is that or the thing which you have to keep in mind is that if else are always clubbed together with the else is always clubbed with the latest if, and then you write if else if, once the condition matches, that entire block is kept. So we can write even more better code with this, because right now the code looks if else else if, which else is blocked with if, which if, all these confusions might arise. So there is a cleaner way to implement this in such a case, which we'll see in the switch case statement, right? So let me implement the same function, the same function, right, in a different fashion. Function check if number is divisible using switch case statements. So switch case switch case is you can say somewhat similar to if else, but how it is being controlled, how you can control your case with, how you can control your code execution with switch case slightly differs when it compares to if else. So see, first you will have a switch block, okay, you will have a switch block, and then you will have a case block, okay, case block. So first thing, the number, I just wrote it reverse, value number, and what here is that, so if you simply see value percentage 2, value percentage 2. So what happens is, here it just divides, the value percentage 2, and whatever value we get here, let's say when you pass value as 4, then inside the switch block, 4 divided by 2, the remainder is 0. So you have to attach a case where value is 0, where value is something else, right? So if case 0, it means console.log value is divisible by 2, right? And here, so what happens is, so let me simplify this for understanding. Okay, so let me simplify this. So let me write a code which says what day is current day. Okay, so let's do that. Function get current day, right? So you are writing a function, basically it gives you the current day. So what is the usual case? You have the new date object with you, new date, and you can use the get day, right? So what basically new date dot get day returns is that it gets me the current day, is it Sunday or Monday, with a number, right? So if I just console.log new date dot get day, and I execute this, get current day, right? So 0, it means that 0 is mapped to Sunday, current day is Sunday for me, right? So now what you have to do is switch. So basically in if conditions you will do this. If new date dot get day is equal to 0, then you will print console.log current day is Sunday, right? Similarly, if it is 1, then Monday, 2, it is Tuesday. In that fashion, if else if. So the same can be written neatly in this fashion. So switch new date dot get day, and when case is 0, it means when the value inside the switch block evaluates to 0, then console.log Sunday. In the same case, what are the different possibilities? One, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Okay, so let's stop it till here. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the last thing is 6, Saturday, right? So if I now execute this particular code, I should get the output. So if you see here, console.log output is equal to this one, right? So I have to call this function. Now see, though the output is 0, technically it should evaluate to Sunday, right? But what happens in a switch case is that let's say I will add one more day to here, like let's say I'll just do +1, like if it is Sunday I have to get the output Monday, Now if you see, my Sunday is not skipped because the switch value didn't evaluated, the expression didn't got evaluated to 0. But what happens is that the first case statement which was evaluated was Monday, so all the below statements have been executed and it is being printed in such a fashion. So once the case is matched, it will ignore the rest all cases and then they just start executing the code, right? In that case, what you have to use is you have to use the break keyword. So what this does is, the break keyword basically ensures that if a case is matched, then it won't allow the code to be executed which are not actual matches. So see, once the case has been matched with Monday, the case has been breaked over here and it reaches to this point, console.log end, right? So if I now execute this, but if I remove the +1, so that the new date will be evaluated to 0, but since I haven't written break statement below the Sunday, so the below case statement will also be executed, right? Cool. Now Sunday end, but there is one more important thing which you have to take care. What if none of the case is matched, right? Right now I am adding 0 plus 10, right? So what happens in this case? When none of the statement is matched, it didn't execute or didn't found out any case matching to it and directly it printed console.log. But in some cases, when you want to handle such cases as well, where none of your cases are matching, right? None of your cases are matching, then you can do this case, no case has been matched. So there is a default case, so it will be executed when none of the case is matched, no case matched. Now if I execute this, no case matched, right? So this is the normal implementation of the switch case. So basically it goes this way: switch expression and then case value. You can wrap your cases inside parent flower brackets or you don't, it doesn't really matter. Right now let's use both of this, right? So let's find a number, if it is divisible by 2, if it is divisible by 3, if it is divisible by 4, right? So return 2, return 3, return 5. In the previous code I am just return null, I am returning a null value, okay, or I would return 0. Okay, now what I will do is find the dividend, right, of a number. So this will take a value, right? This will take a value and this is of type number. Now I'll write a switch case, just the use case. So switch case value, or I would say, yes, I can call a function also inside, check if number is divisible by value, and if that number is 2, then console.log output is 2. Similarly, I can write for all the cases, right? Is divisible by 2, is divisible by 3, and is divisible by 5. 5, 3, and default case where output is 0, right? And again I have to add the break statements. So technically doesn't matter if you end it with a semicolon or not. It is not mandatory. Just for the clean code I am doing it. And find the dividend, I'm just doing the 10, right? So when I do this, output is 2, right? Output is 2. So this is how you will use the switch case and break statements, right? Now let's see how you can use the loops, right? The different loops which you can write or loop through different cases or different arrays. So we have 3 different loops. One is for loop, one is while loop, another is do while loop. So when to use what? Use for loop when you want to execute a piece of code for a fixed number of times. We'll see how to write a for loop. Use while loop when you want to execute a piece of code until the condition is true. Use do while loop when you want to execute a piece of code until the condition is false. So the purpose of each loop is that use for loop when you want to run a loop repeatedly for a fixed number of times. While loop when you want to execute a piece of condition until the condition piece of code until the condition is true. Do while loop when you want to execute a piece of code until the condition is false. The syntax for that is for loop initialize. So let me write it down this way. For loop initialization condition increment. So each time you have to increment that you have counted, right? Then while loop condition, then your block of code, then do while loop block of code, while condition. So these are the different syntaxes how you would write different types of loops. For loop, so first you will declare let I equal to 0, I less than 10, I plus plus, right? So here this loop will be exactly executed 10 times. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? It will be executed exactly 10 times. Executing for I. So when I run this code, while loop will be exactly executed for 10 times, and after each iteration, first the value will be initialized 0, this code will be executed, then I plus plus, then I value is 1, it checks I is less than 10, then again executed. Similarly, while loop. So here I will be executed until let I equal to 19. So whatever, this value might be coming from anywhere, but this while loop you cannot really say how many number of times it is going to be executed, but it will be executed until the I value is less than 20. Similarly, the do while loop. Do while. right? Here I is greater than 35. So if I just see now, for this while block, the initialization happens outside. So for while block, initialization happens outside, increment condition happens inside the parenthesis, and increment happens inside the block. So initialization happens outside, condition it happens inside the parenthesis, and increment happens inside. So now both of these are same. If you look at the way, now this loop and this loop are same, but when to use a while loop, when to use a for loop, this is the reason, right? And the do while loop until a condition is false, right? Until I is greater than 10. Console.log I equal to, no, I'll just put the same thing, right? Put the same thing. Here also put the same thing. I plus plus. Again I'll initialize. Right now when I execute this code, there is some problem. Cannot redeclare. I'll use this as J, and this is J, and this is J, right? So see each code, if I write executing for loop, executing while loop, and executing do while loop, right? So now if I see do while loop, J is greater than 0, so the condition is false here itself. So yeah, oh, the syntax, cool. So oh shit, here I have to print J, that's it. Yes, so executing for loop until 9, executing while loop until 9, and executing do while loop until 9. So this is how you will write your code, do while, and you can do this inside as well. So this is how you write it, but this variable will not be accessible, hence you put it outside. So that's it. These are the different loops, and you can pick any of the loop based on what you want to do. If you want to run a piece of code for exact fixed number of times, then use for loop. You want to execute a piece of code until the condition is true, then you use while loop, and you do while loop until you execute a piece of code until the condition is false, right? So that's it.